Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you today. We are excited to be here on this Tuesday again to meet about Avini Health. This is our Testimony Tuesday call, but we have some special guests tonight, and it's going to be a great call. We know that your time spent with us will be valuable. We know by the time you get done with us, you'll understand how valuable it is, and that this call could change your life or someone that you know. We have all natural products. We don't make medical claims. We don't need to make medical claims. But today's call will be a little different anyway. We get to hear from Rik Deitsch himself. Chip Littlejohn will be interviewing him, and then our CEO, Neil Roth, will be on with us too. I wanted to share a quick testimony of a new friend that I just met. Her name is Joy. And one of the main products that we have is called Plus Relief, Avini Plus Relief. And it is actually a pain relief. It's amazing what's been happening. Many people on the call here today have dramatic, life-changing stories about this product. And Joy is now becoming part of that family of having a life-changing testimony with this product. She has been bedridden for almost 10 years. Hardly out of bed. I shouldn't say totally bedridden, but mostly all the time in bed for the last 10 years with pain. Has degenerative issues in her back, has had surgeries, different things go on. And she's been on different pain medications, morphine included, some other ones that she's been wanting to get off of. And so she started on our Plus Relief product, taking 4 sprays 4 times a day, and within a week got some results. So then she decided to go ahead and start on our Cell Defender product also. And with the 2 products together now, about another week on those products, she is not any longer needing the support of her walker when she goes outside. She was she went to the farmer's market with her daughter, and all she had to do is just kind of hold on to her daughter's arm a little bit just for stability. She is so excited. The pain has relieved so much that it has absolutely changed her life. And people are saying to her, "Oh my goodness, you look so different." She says, "Well, my pain is just almost gone." And so we'll have more testimony with that. And I just want to thank Joy for letting me share that. And she'll join us in a few weeks and share herself with even more testimony. So with that, just one of our products, one of our life-changing testimonies. So with that, though, I would like to bring on Neil Roth, our CEO, and whatever he has to share today. Go ahead, Neil.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for getting on again today. So 22 days and 23 hours, it starts. But who's counting? I am. That's the summit launch. So that's how many days we got left. So a couple of things I'm just going to ask you guys to do. Number one, if you haven't registered, please go and register. Okay. And a lot of you have told me you're coming, you didn't have a chance to register. I'm trying to get all the registration done as soon as September 15th, if we can. Understand there's a lot of logistics involved in one of these things, including name badges, who's going to get recognized, who's going to be there. How many people for the different meals. So please go online, register your guests. We have set it up now so your guests can go and register themselves. You don't have to register, they don't have to register through you necessarily. So that should make it easy. So that's number one. Number two, we already have figured out who's qualified from a Ruby Plus standpoint and sent out messages to people. Though you do have a chance this month to still make it. If you can do that by the 15th, that's cool we probably even wait till the end and add you to it, but I do need to know that. But more importantly is I do know that there's a bunch of people who won the contest already, and only one person has sent that paperwork in, okay? So again, it takes time and effort to do all this stuff. So in order for the people not to be up until 4 o'clock in the morning, the day of the conference, would you please get it in as soon as possible? The contest ends September 15th, but don't wait till then. If you've already qualified, send it in. We do have one person who sent it in already, so I know it worked. People are qualifying. I can see how many people, I get lists of how many people each person brings into the business. So I know there's a ton of you with over 5 people. Go check it out. So please. Having said that, Rik and I are working our whatever off to really get this thing ready, have the products there for you, do what we need to do So be prepared to come in there and listen a lot, because it's going to be a lot of information in an 8-hour period on that Saturday. So be prepared. And with that, Robin, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate that. We can't wait to see each other. And anyone who's listening that you're brand new, you are invited. And it is free to you to come and spend your time with us. And Saturday is going to be 3/4 just science, and we have a special guest coming besides our wonderful Chief Science Officer Rik Deitsch, biochemist, our creator of our products, and all the leaders, Doug Dickey and of course Neil Roth, and our leaders. It'll be exciting, and each one of you are a leader. Each one of you that have shared these products, you are leading by getting the word out to help people have a choice to take these products and change their lives and their families' lives. So thank you for doing that. Keep going. Let's keep doing that. Keep spreading the word. So that's what this call's about. Chip Littlejohn, Chip and Marcy are just awesome friends of mine, family. We just kind of adopted each other, and I just owe them so much for sharing this cell defender with my family and myself, and I'm just overwhelmed with that. Chip is also part of our scientific advisory board. We appreciate him so much, and I'm going to bring him on, and he'll bring our wonderful guest on today.
All right, everybody. This is Chip Littlejohn with Avini Health Company, speaking to you from Scottsbluff, Nebraska today, where about August 15th of 2005, my wife handed a paper over her shoulder to me and said, this is about to be introduced to network marketing. What do you think? And I started reading it, and it was something that Rik had created. And as I read, I thought, oh my gosh, if this is true, this is the most important thing I've ever run across, health-wise. And now here we are, sometime in September 2022, and I still think that's the case. What I'd like as a goal for this call is for Rik to know all of you guys personally in depth, and for all of you to know him personally in depth. And so I had to narrow down the scope of the call. So I thought, well, if I can get you guys all to know him, that would be a pretty good call. And so there's some things that I know about Rik that I want to maybe draw out today. And there's some things I don't know that I wanted to ask about. And we have a few questions that are in about, will it help this? Will it help that? Will it remove this? Will it remove that? And the answer is always yes. And we can deal with a little bit of that later on. But I really want you guys to know and have a feeling as you're reaching out to other people and asking if they'd be interested to work with us, who is the guy that's thinking? Sometimes he's behind the scenes, but he's brilliant when he comes to the front. Rik Deitsch, would you please come to the front of the screen?
I'm right here, Chip. It's a pleasure as always.
All right. Well, I'd like to start, and this is one of my very favorite questions for you ever, and I want everybody to know this because we're into brand new people at this point. What was one of the earliest stories that caused you to think, gee, I'd like to be a biochemist?
Oh, well, yeah, there's actually two sides of that story. One's a little funnier than the other, but the real story is I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I say youngest, I have a twin brother who's 3 minutes older than me. So, but I am the youngest of 5. And when I was a little kid, my father had Hodgkin's disease, which is a lymphoma. And back then it was practically a death sentence. This is 1973. And he was he was actually had enrolled in a clinical study at Temple University School of Medicine, and they were testing out new chemotherapies on him and his group of lymphoma patients. And my mother, imagine, my mother she's probably about 28 years old at the time, dragging 5 young kids behind her, visiting my dad in the hospital. And it was heart-wrenching. I'm 5, 6 years old. And I would see my mom was always upset when she talked to the doctors. The doctor would come out, she'd say, how's my husband doing? We can't tell you that. And then she would ask what seemed like simple questions, and they would always answer her with very lengthy very technical, esoteric answers that my mother clearly didn't understand. Of course, I didn't speak that language back then, but I just saw my mother was upset every time she talked to the doctors. And I'll never forget this one day. I remember like it was yesterday. We're sitting on this long bench in this waiting area, patient waiting area. And these guys walked up to the doctors that just made my mother cry. You know, the doctors that upset my mother. And they were wearing lab coats like the one I'm wearing now, long lab coats. And they looked like hippies. They had long hair. One guy had a ponytail and they were carrying clipboards. And they were like literally poking the doctor in the chest. They were yelling at this doctor. They're looking at the clipboards, yelling at the doctor. And all I'm thinking is, that's cool. I wish I could yell at the doctor. You know, I wish I knew what to say to yell at that doctor. And my mother asked the nurse who they were. And they said, oh, they're the biochemists from the School of Medicine. They designed the clinical study that your husband is on. My mom said, can I talk to them? They said, sure. So we went up to them and my mother said who she was. And they were awesome. They sat down with us. They explained what the drugs were that my father was on, how they worked, their mechanism of action, how well my father was doing in the study, what we could expect in the coming weeks and months. It was awesome. It's the first time my mother felt like comfortable since this whole process had begun. And all I thought is, wow, these guys really seem to know what they're talking about. And they got to push the doctors around. I'm like, I want to be a biochemist. I thought that was it. And from then on, I started learning about chemistry and biochemistry. And then the other reason is a little different. I'm a big comic book fan. I read comics, primarily Marvel comics growing up, and I read everything. And if you know about superheroes in the comic books, a lot of superheroes were scientists, mostly biochemists, that had accidents in their lab that gave them superpowers. And so in my mind, I was going to have an accident in my lab and have superpowers. Although most of the time I'm working with cobra venom, so I don't know what kind of powers I would have with an accident with cobra venom, but I could guess.
Well, I love that, and I hope everybody loves that story. I want to go a little bit further down that path because we're talking about some of the characters in your life that have been formative for you. Yeah. And I want to ask about how did you wind up with Gertrude Elion? Who is she? Why is she so important? What's the stuff you've made together? What'd she do? Something about that woman, because I really like telling people that our biochemist came from blank.
Well, okay, so I actually worked with 3 different Nobel Prize winners in my career in graduate school and postgraduate. But I was just a cog in Gertrude Elion's lab. I was just a cog. You know, she had a lot of really, really great people in that laboratory. But the work back then was at Duke University Comprehensive Cancer Center. And the work I was doing actually in South Florida, Florida Atlantic University, was called computer adaptive drug design. I was using a computer to model the molecule, a drug molecule, and try to figure out how it worked. We'd model it against receptors. We'd model it in different, what we call force fields, which were like a fake environment. Was it in blood? Was it in water? Was it different solutions? Was it an isotonic solution? Were there other minerals involved? And we try to figure out how those molecules worked, what they looked like. And that's important too, because the structure of a molecule is a very tricky thing. Because imagine I want to know, Chip, what you look like. And so I sneak into your backyard, and I take a picture while you're swimming in your pool. And you're like this, swimming in your pool. Is that what you look like? No, that's just that snapshot of you when you're swimming in your pool. On the flip side, I'll sneak into your bedroom and you're curled up in bed and I take a picture of it. Is that really what you look like? You know, so when you're taking these snapshots of molecules, whether you're using NMR or X-ray crystallography, that's not really what the molecule looks like. So to try to figure it out, you take different pictures of them and you basically do something called simulated annealing. You pretend that you're heating up the molecule so it gets all excited, and then you cool it down slowly. And as it cools down, it gets to a state called the resting state or ground state. And when it gets to the resting state, that's basically what it looks like. Imagine that you're not laying in bed curled up, you're swimming in your pool, but you're sitting at the dinner table. That's mostly what you look like, you know? And so when I did molecular dynamic simulation, I was really good at that. I was really good at finding out what the molecule looked like, and then we could figure out how it worked, what it bound to and what it didn't. So the work that Gertrude Elion was doing was in something called camptothecin analogs. Now, first of all, she's a Nobel Prize winner. She was 86 years old when I was working with her in the lab, and she was working 14 hours a day. She was a dedicated researcher. And people today, anyone who's ever gotten a transplant owes their life to Gertrude Elion, because she invented pretty much every anti-rejection medication that's used today. That was her work. But for that lab, she was looking at a drug called camptothecin. Camptothecin was originally a molecule that came from a bush called the Camptotheca acuminata, or the happy tree, the Zishu happy tree. And it was this kind of serendipitous discovery by Monroe Wall, the guy who actually invented Taxol, was at someone's house, and he was looking at their backyard. He noticed like pretty much all their plants were dead except this little bush. They said, why is that bush not dead? Everything else is dead. So it was this sturdy little bush that was immune to some sort of disease that killed all the other plants. And that was the Camptotheca acuminata. And he started looking at chemicals from it. He found some chemicals that were naturally anti-cancer chemicals, anti-proliferative chemicals. And so we got camptothecin out of that. For years, they'd worked on it. But the problem is that camptothecin, I've told you guys this story before. In all the rat models, it worked great. If you gave me a rat with cancer, we could cure it. Anyone have a rat with cancer, bring it to me, I can cure it. The problem is when we give it to people, it actually hurt the people and it killed a few patients. And that was before I came onto the scene and started working on it. But the question to me, looking at the molecule, was why does it cure rats and kill people? And that was the job I had to do in that lab. And what we discovered is that I don't want to get too deep into the chemistry, but there's a closed ring, a circular structure in the end of the molecule. And in an acidic environment, it opens up. It's called a lactin ring. And when it opens up, it's active. And that's how it works. And it opens up in an acidic environment. So cancer is always an acidic environment. So that drug actually works primarily where there's cancer. The problem is that it bound to human serum albumin, which is a transport protein. The human serum albumin was grabbing the drug, dropping it off in the kidneys and the bladder. That's also an acidic environment. The drug was activating and blowing up the kidneys and blowing up the bladder. And once we figured out what was happening, we figured out how to make an analog, tweak the molecule so it would no longer bind to human serum albumin. So it wouldn't be carried to the kidneys and the bladder, and could go to the cancer. And that was the gist of that work. And eventually we wound up with 3 drugs, irinotecan and topotecan, which are sold today, and 5-hydroxy-7-methoxycamptothecin, which I don't think was ever commercialized, but was one of the drugs we developed in that lab.
I love interviewing Rik because he gives nice long answers, which lets me work on the next question. The point is, he has a spectacular background on the medical side and understands a lot of the afflictions of humans. And now I'd like to progress on kind of through your career. So here you are, graduated, you're a bright young guy. And so many people who, even on our side that represent network marketing companies say, gee, I didn't think I liked it. I've never heard that from you. Would you tell a little bit, and I want you eventually to get around to the point, I want to ask something about Neil, but would you talk about how you showed up at Rexall and what the heck is a formulator compared to a normal biochemist? Could you say something about that, the old fiber days or whatever?
Yeah, we can talk about all that. So yeah, it's interesting. I was working on my PhD. I got my master's in biochemistry. I was working on my PhD and I started making money. What I was doing, computer adaptive drug design, was a real huge deal back then. We had to use supercomputers, and I tell the story because we used a DEC Alpha workstation, a Cray T3E supercomputer, and a Silicon Graphics O2 oxygen computer for display, all supercomputers, and it could take me days to do the simulations to be able to put together my work. That computing power, all that computing power is less than what's on my phone today. It just tells you how different it was back then than today. So, but back then it was a very specialized thing, computer adaptive drug design and molecular dynamic simulations. There were probably 200 people in the world that did what I did. And so next thing you know, I'm getting consulting offers from Pfizer and Bayer and a bunch of different pharma companies and colleges. And I started making a little money. And I also married a woman that has expensive tastes. And so I basically never finished my PhD. I did the work, but they wanted me to teach another year and do some other stuff in the lab. So I never finished my PhD. I actually started working. And the other thing, if anyone has ever, you guys are entrepreneurial, if you've ever been a consultant and you get a paycheck, you realize that you're only as good as your next client. And so it was salad days where I was making a lot of money, and then there'd be a few months where I'm looking for my next client and we had bills to pay. And by then I think, I already had, Matthew was already born. Matthew was born in 97. So I had the great fortune to meet David Schofield, who at the time was the CEO of a division of Rexall Showcase International. And Dave and I really hit it off, and he wanted me to work for him. There wasn't even a position for me when he hired me. He said, just come in, I want you on the team. And that was my introduction to Rexall. And my first job was medical writer and technical specialist. And my job was to look at all the formulations and see what I thought. And medical writer, they would give me copy for different dietary supplements. And it would say heart disease. We really can't say heart disease. You can say cardiovascular risk, So that was my job, to tweak all the marketing material and to write marketing material. So that was my introduction to the dietary supplement world. And I will tell you this, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I was very much a snob when I came to Rexall. I was a real researcher. I worked on drugs. We used to make fun of the sort of people that worked at Rexall. We called them herbal gerbils. There were a couple of naturopathic doctors. The joke back then was someone said they were an ND. ND stood for not a doctor. So, but I'm telling you, I've now since have met amazing naturopathic doctors that have a depth of knowledge that's unbelievable. And so I no longer make fun of these people. They had such a great team over at Rexall. I learned a lot. And I've actually continued in dual lives. I'm still a pharmaceutical biochemist working in drug discovery. In fact, I just got off the phone with the group that's going to do our phase 2 clinical studies in the Bahamas for multiple sclerosis. And I work in dietary supplements. And when I got to Rexall, I had a meteoric rise at Rexall. I went from being a part-time technical specialist to a director of product development within less than a year, about a year and 2 months. And next thing you know, I'm running product development for the entire network marketing division, creating all their products. But then the other thing I found out was how much I love talking about it. And I will tell you this, we kind of talked about school and graduate school, but all that time I was bartending. I actually was a bartender all through college and graduate school, and it was a great job. And I learned a lot bartending. It was a very flexible job. It was a cash job. And I can honestly tell you that as much as I'm a decent biochemist, one of the major reasons for my success are the skills I learned as a bartender. The people skills, the ability to interact with people, the way you could de-escalate situations. I mean, all that came from my years as a bartender, and I appreciate that. And it's kind of funny because every once in a while, someone tries to speak about me in a derogatory manner. They say, he was just a bartender. I'm like, yeah, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I got a lot of experience working with people as a bartender. So when I got to Rexall, I used those same skills, and I worked with management and I worked with product development, and I was able to get the right people to listen to me when it came to new products, and even when it came to tweaking existing products. And so I had like I said, meteoric rise. And one of the things I started doing, which I had never done before, is speaking to people that were using my products. In drug discovery, you never do that. You make the drugs. The CEO, the investors, the uber rich that own most of the companies, they get all the credit, they do all the talking, and the scientists sit back and they take their salary and they take their lumps. But for me to get up on stage, talking to hundreds and then thousands of people and tell them why I made the product the way I did, the research, the thinking that went into it, what they can expect to happen, and then to answer their questions was thrilling for me. I loved it. I loved being able to talk to the end user of the product, because never before was I able to do something like that. And even the product itself, you get a product and you put it on a store shelf. Who's supporting that product? You have to have marketing, and you have to do commercials, and you have to get education out into the marketplace, because there's a shelf behind that product. But every one of our products has a person behind it to explain, to point in the right direction, to tell their own stories. So that's very exciting for me. And I got the bug right away. The second I started working Rexall Showcase, I love the concept of distribution through network marketing.
So I hope you guys are getting the gist of what I want to do with this call. I hope you understand that Rik's letting you in a little bit deeper. I hope you feel like you're getting to know the guy, and when you're representing him and his products, you really are confident about what you're doing. So now I'm going to go just a little bit deeper and have you be the guy who knows the guy. And so
Okay.
obviously, you know who I'm talking about now. I've just spent the last couple of years working with Neil actually as my sponsor in network marketing. And I thought he was a nice guy, a sharp guy, very hardworking, in the trenches network marketer, had not the foggiest idea what a $1 billion executive is and what he can do. I would never had the foggiest idea that he could do this, which is incredible. But I wondered if maybe you could just go back a little bit further and talk about those days. And he just told me, like, while we were waiting for this call, I didn't know this. Yeah, we've figured out now that he was a triple diamond in Rexall with the fiber product. But
Yeah.
he just said, that took me 6 years. So I'm asking you guys to understand that and be patient. One more before I turn Rik loose again. What Rik said about the guy that invited him to come to Rexall is really what you're saying to people as well. And he said, come in, we want you. We don't even know exactly why yet. You just look like the perfect person to fit into our organization. And really that's our message to the people that we're asking to join us. So can I ask you to go back to the triple diamond 6 years in fiber with you and Neil, and maybe throw in a little bit of electric car company along the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Neil and I go way back. It's kind of funny because people see how Neil and I are together, and someone actually made the comment like, you guys are really jealous of the relationship you have, the friendship, the relationship you have. And I said, I think it's funny because I've always thought of it as a very abusive relationship. I kid, I say Neil yells at me. He doesn't really yell, but Neil knows what he wants, and he's very direct about it. And if you don't know him, you think he's yelling at you. But that's him as a manager. And I got to tell you, I've never actually been a manager. I don't like to manage people. I've had people under me, but I usually let the people under me manage those people, but I like to just be creative and work in the lab and do what I like doing. So having someone like Neil on the corporate side is absolutely phenomenal. And he has his background. He was a senior vice president of giant corporations, a lot of ones you've heard. Although if he ever tells you the story, my favorite story about Neil is his, as far as I'm concerned, his biggest claim to fame. If anyone's ever had a Cadbury chocolate Easter egg at Easter, Neil's the one who made that happen. That product came to him. He saw the value in it. He got it into retail. He made the deals. So we would not have chocolate Easter eggs if it was not for Neil, many, many moons ago. All right. But yes, when I was Rexall merged with Enrich and became Unicity, we wound up with a new CEO. And I didn't really get along with him. He had his way of doing things. I saw he was a really big guy. He was I say really big guy. I think he was about 6'4", 6'5". I think the average height of guys in Avini is like 6'10", right? When I'm standing around Chip and standing around Darren, I feel like I'm standing in a hole, because I'm 5'10". But the CEO was a big guy, and mostly acted bigger than life. I think in one meeting he actually rode a horse onto stage, so he had this kind of ego about him. And I know Neil a couple of times, but with this one conference, this guy walks up and sees Neil, and he shrunk like 10 times when he saw Neil. He said, "Mr. Roth, what are you doing here?" And what's funny is that all of you have probably had this experience where you have a business relation with someone or a relationship with someone, and then that relationship changes. But it's hard to change from what the original relationship was. So Neil had been an executive at a company that this guy was trying to sell to many years before. And that was the relationship. He was trying to sell to Neil. Neil was Mr. Roth, and this was this other guy. And I love the dynamic where this guy was so bossy and so in everyone's face. And to Neil, he was like, scrimping. And I'm like, I love this. I absolutely love this. This is my new best friend. And I just started hanging out with Neil after that. And as the company's changed over the years, we stayed in touch. I created a division of my company called Designer Diagnostics that Neil ran for a few years. Neil started a company making electric vehicles that I think went on the board of, and I invest a lot of money with. And over the years, we've done different things, and we have stories for every one of these adventures. And then, of course, in the last few years, Neil has dragged me from company to company with my products until he decided that the best way to do this is to do it ourselves. And I'll reiterate, when he told me, let's launch our own network marketing company, I said, no, I did not want to launch our own network marketing company. I know it's very difficult. It's like herding cats when you have all these different distributors and everyone has different needs and different wants and everybody wants to be the boss. But he said him and Doug would handle that side. I'd handle the products. And he convinced me. And I got to tell you, I'm not unpleased at the results so far. This is amazing. We're helping a lot of people. We're changing people's lives, and we're growing by leaps and bounds.
I ask you big questions, and I do expect big answers. So I'm going to go just right down a little bit deeper. Obviously, you are, the formulator. You are the guy that creates the products that we're interested in. You're the guy that creates the categories when there isn't such a thing to start with. And so I have a little something about each product that maybe I'd like to know a little bit of detail about each product, but what I'd really like to ask you right now is, what's it take? We think it's tough to convince other people about a product or a technology or a way of thinking. What's it take to get your interest? What's the characteristics of a product that gets Rik working? What's that take? And then what's special about Avini in this moment? What's going on with that? I mean, I've never asked you that before, but let us know, please.
No, and I got to tell you, when I was at Rexall, remember, Rexall at the time was the largest manufacturer of dietary supplements on the planet. Everybody came to us with new ideas. I get 100 new ideas across my desk a day. Some things I loved. I've told you products that came across my desk I'd love to launch today, that because of a variety of different things we can't do. They're just great products, but whether it was intellectual property or ego from scientists, that we couldn't get it done. And it's a shame, because there are products that could help people that are sitting on shelves places that we can't bring to market. On the flip side, I once had a guy get in my office. I didn't even know how he got the meeting. And he was a landscaper, and he was dressed just like a landscaper. And he puts a milk jug full of green water on my desk and says, this is the cure for everything. And then that swigs down, a big swig of water. And I'm like, okay, tell me what's going on. So he said, I was mowing the lawn at this golf course where I mow the lawn, and I was dying. I was so thirsty. I was so hot. I couldn't take it anymore. So I just put my face in the lake that was right there, and I drank the water, and instantly I felt better. I felt hydrated. I had energy. There's something in this water. It's magic water. And so I started bottling it, and I drink it at home. I've never been better. I've never been healthier. I'm like, okay, let's be clear. I can't sell lake water. I don't know who owns that lake, and I can't just go and bottle the water and sell it in bottles. I said, so let's analyze it. Let's see it. We're probably gonna have to pasteurize it. We have to make sure there's no bacterial growth or molds or yeast or spores, because you're going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it. You can't do anything to it. It's perfect. It's God's creation. It's perfectly, like, it might be, and good for you for drinking it, but I can't sell green lake water as a dietary supplement. So that's the sort of stuff that would come across my desk. And and every once in a while something would be really interesting. I think I told you before, we looked at that Cryptolepis sanguinolenta. That was that bush in West Africa that cures malaria. It was fascinating. I really want to do that, but the pharma company is kind of trying to lock that up. Years later, we had a Hochieki To. It was a Chinese herbal formulation that seems to cure lung cancer. And they had 20 years of research, over 10,000 cured cases of lung cancer. And at the time, Unici was so enamored of that product, they bought the global supply of the herbs that made up that formula. Over $6 million they spent to wrap up those herbs so they can make that product. And they were going to call it Healthy Lung Product, because obviously we can't say it's the cure for lung cancer. But they didn't read the research. They just heard that it cures lung cancer. When I dove in, I'm like, yeah, it cured 10,000 cases of lung cancer, but 8,000 people died of liver failure. So okay, so it's curing the lungs, but it's destroying the liver. And so they said, well, what's destroying the liver? We'll take that out. I said, well, it's not that easy. The thing that's destroying the liver could be the same thing that's treating the cancer, or it could be a combination. We don't have enough data. So we had after they spent $6 million, we had to kill the project, because they didn't read the research. So there's a lot of that stuff that comes across my desk. Now, one of the things that, Neil loved about me is that because I've been doing this for so long, and I don't know if you can see, I've got shelves behind me, I got drawers behind me, files. I've got probably 1,000 products sitting in files that are products that have been tested and formulated, and different versions of them have been available, many of which never got launched, never made it to market. So I've got a depth of potential products that we could bring to market, whether in Avini or elsewhere. But there are categories that I love, the categories that we know are going to grow, and categories that aren't well served. And that's what happened back in 2003, 2004 with the zeolite. Everybody talked about detox, and it was annoying to me that when they talked about detox, it was about going to the bathroom. Everything. And I'm hearing this now with the fiber. Everyone keeps saying the fiber's working. I pooped twice today, Well, that's just part of what the fiber does. So when you're telling the fiber works because you're going to the bathroom, great. But let's see when your HbA1c comes down, your cholesterol and triglycerides come down, when you have more energy during the day, when you're losing weight, all these great benefits of the fiber. It's not just about going to the bathroom, because we've now kind of gotten conditioned where fiber helps you go to the bathroom, but fiber does so much more. And so I got really mad at this whole concept that detoxification simply meant going to the bathroom. And I said, we should be able to systemically detoxify, and how do we do that? And that led me to all the work with the research, with the zeolite. And similarly, we launched that original mushroom product back in 2009. And the reason we launched it is I found a product that I found a formulation that would incredibly increase your immune system reactivity, especially to viruses. And this is when swine flu was coming out. And everyone was scared to death what swine flu was going to do. It's one of the worst flu seasons we've had in a really long time. And we prepared for it by saying this product will help improve your immune system and prevent too much severity of swine flu if you get it. Of course, we got in trouble for saying that, but it did, and that was the original mushroom formulation, which I'm glad we were able to bring back with Z-Immunity, because a lot of the people that followed me from Rexall to Unicity to Weora to here love that product, So I don't know if I've answered the question. I can tell you that I always think about a couple things. First of all, if it's a new ingredient, something people haven't seen before, that's awesome. Especially things that have proven themselves. Agaricus blazei is a great example. Agaricus blazei as a mushroom is a commodity in Japan. Everywhere you go in Japan, you can get agaricus tea, agaricus soup, agaricus plants, agaricus everything. And in the United States, it's still pretty much unheard of. They don't know it. So you have an ingredient that's incredibly well studied. We know what it does. It's a commodity in parts of the world, and yet in the United States, it's brand new. And so I love stuff like that, where we can know something safe and effective. How can we bring it to a new market? So that's one example. But so we look at both ingredients, and I especially love when a new ingredient kind of rears up and says, "Look at me." And then, of course, when new research gets published, whenever there's new research and new concepts, and today a lot of the research is on this concept of anti-aging or healthy aging, because we have an aging population. All these baby boomers are in their 70s and 80s. It's this largest group of individuals that grew up, born in the 40s through the early 60s. and they're aging, and every trend we've had for the last 75 years is really the baby boomer trends. The push to formula feeding of babies, the push to diapers, disposable diapers, and then eventually the launch of computers and home computers. All that was driven by baby boomers, and now we're in this baby boomer driven healthy aging environment. And so anything that's going to help you age better, be healthier, live longer, keep your cognitive function, be able to sleep well, be able to go to the bathroom well, all these things that we equate as symptoms of aging, if we can deal with those, then we have a huge home run.
So I had a detail for each of the products that I wanted to ask. And so you just covered immunity by highlighting Agaricus blazei. And I wanted to get this detail out about Cell Defender, because it's really the thing that differentiates your zeolite from everybody else's zeolite. It's my understanding that it takes you someplace around 3 days to create each batch and 30 steps. And that at the most, other than just dumping it out of the bag that comes from the mine, if somebody's even attempting to imitate you, my line is they're attempting to imitate something they don't understand. And they're willing to spend about 3 steps in 30 minutes to do something that takes 3 days and 30 steps. Could you assure us that we're in the right place with the right zeolite guy?
Yeah. So, and it's nice because I had to sue Wayora in 2017 under the Defense of Trade Secret Act, because they basically, I licensed the formula for them. So I taught a manufacturer how to make my product. And apparently it was too hard. He didn't want to do the work. And so he was not making it the way I actually had instructed him to make it under confidentiality. And when they kept selling it after my contract was over, my license agreement was over, their excuse was, well, we're not making it the way you told us, so therefore we don't have to pay you or we can continue to make it. And I had a problem with that argument. And so I took them to court, and in federal court, they looked at the way I make it, the way I instructed them to make it, of course, in camera, which was under secrecy, only the judge got to see it. But then they showed them the way they were making it, and the judge called it Dietsch light. So you're right, it was like 4 steps of my 30 steps. And then even when we interviewed their manufacturer, he didn't even understand the 4 steps he was doing, why he was doing those steps. He didn't understand the purpose of them. He didn't even understand the purpose of micronization. He didn't understand what activation even meant. And he didn't, so it was a little disturbing to me, but I won that case. I wound up with an injunction against them, and I got all the rights back to the product, which eventually led me to create the products for the previous couple of them network marketing companies, and now Avini. But yeah, it's a complicated labor intensive manufacturing process. And I'll tell you, because people can look up zeolite. Zeolite is literally dirt. It's dirt. You go to a zeolite mine site, there's a pit of dirt. It's volcanic ash. And it's used in kitty litter. It's used in clotting products. It's used in diarrhea pills, to prevent diarrhea. It's got a lot. It's used in cement. They use zeolite in the production of concrete. So it's got lots and lots of uses. But if you take it and you treat it the way it's supposed to, one of the most amazing uses is its use as a dietary supplement in detoxification. And there are societies that have talked about this in primarily India called geophasics, clay eaters, that the zeolite has been part of their diet for over 800 years. And we see it. There's birds. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's a bird in West Africa that eats a poisonous berry. So no animals can eat this berry because it's highly toxic. And they said, so at first, researchers thought that the bird had something in their body that would kill the toxin, destroy the toxin, and so they were able to eat it. But a documentary crew was following the birds. They would eat the berries, and they'd fly to a zeolite deposit and chew on the zeolite, eat the minerals, which stop the poison from hurting them. So the birds had evolved to understand they can eat these berries if they do this.
So I gotta love that story. I never heard you tell that before. There's always a big add-on someplace along the line.
I'm just saying, it's part of nature. There's a reason for it.
While you're on Cell Defender, I got to ask a couple of more details that are important because I know people are going to be challenged in these ways. Why proprietary versus patent, and what's your relationship with the FDA?
All right, that's a great question. So for people to understand what a patent is a contract with the public that says, I will teach you what I'm doing. Because a patent has to teach something. If a patent doesn't teach something, it's not a valid patent. I will teach you something, and in return, I get 20 years of exclusivity to make money with it. That's the contract with the public. But with a patent, you only get 20 years. Not only that, because you're teaching something with the patent, smart people can always figure out a way around it. They'll look at the patent, they'll tweak it somehow, change one thing here or one thing there, especially if they're a large company and you're a small company. It's really hard to fight them when they're infringing on your patent. They'll infringe, you sue them, they'll put you in court, it'll cost you millions and millions and millions of dollars just to try to keep going after them while they're continuing to sell the product and do whatever they want to do. So it's really, really hard to defend a patent, especially if you're not Pfizer or Merck or GlaxoSmithKline, you know? So I remember at Rexall, we had the patent, we had the license to patent for OsteoBiflex, which was Dr. Ted Theodosakis, who wrote the book, The Arthritis Cure. He's the one who said, mix glucosamine and chondroitin, and he had a patent on it. And we kept suing people for patent infringement. At some point, it wasn't worth it. We stopped suing people because everybody just kept copying it and copying and copying it, thinking that, oh, I can mix glucosamine and chondroitin. No, that's our patent. We own that. You can't do that. But within 2 years, we were the #1 selling dietary supplement in the United States with OsteoBiflex. Everybody else was copying us. We said, forget it. We stopped defending the patent because it wasn't worth it. It just was too hard. Meanwhile, if you keep something proprietary, you keep it as a trade secret, it's good forever. The formula for Coca-Cola is a trade secret. It's not a patent. And it's been a trade secret since 1892. Do you know what's in Coca-Cola? I think there's like 6 people that know the actual formula of Coca-Cola, you know? So that's where trade secret comes in. And it was a very tricky part of the US law until 2015. Congress passed the Defense of Trade Secret Act, which is the act I actually used to sue Aora. And it's greatly strengthened guys like me who rely on our trade secrets.
Well, I hope you guys are enjoying and loving this as much as I am. You know, I never really heard a patent described that eloquently before. A teaching contract with the public that buys you 20 years with your product, but everybody's going to try to infringe on it. So essentially, it forces you to reveal what you know. And then all of the vultures come behind that.
Now, don't get me wrong. I've got 21 patents at Nutrapharma. We have patents for drugs for antivirals. We got patents for autoimmune. We have 4 patents pending. But that's a little different because as a biotech company, our entire business model is prove and license. So once we prove something, we have to have something to sell, something to license. And that's always going to be the intellectual property that surrounds your drug. So when our MS drug comes out of phase 2, we're going to license it to a larger partner. What we're actually licensing is the patent and the intellectual property, the clinical research that goes with it.
So I'm going to jump products now, and I'm going to go to Plus Relief. Okay. So I've known for a while that you were working on something like that, and its moment is now, it seems like. And so the question I'd like to ask is, all right, you come up with this idea, you create a product, and you manufacture it, and you're sitting there as a biochemist in your office all by yourself thinking the world's going to beat a path to your door to buy it. But that doesn't happen. So you run into a little opportunity or a concept called network marketing, and you work along for a while. You had never given that product any thing close to network marketing that I ever heard of before. You cast your fly out on the water and you send it out with the Avini products, and all of a sudden this big guy that you've referred to a couple of times turns out to be the lightning rod for the thing. Could you say something about, you know, what it takes to get a product discovered, even though you know it's hugely valuable, and maybe touch on it through the Plus Relief product?
So actually, the story is a little more complicated than that. I had actually given up on network marketing when it came to this technology. So back in 2009, we launched our first over-the-counter pain drug with cobra venom. That was called Cobroxin. And we launched it through a third-party distributor that was incredibly effective. They had it in 30,000 stores. We're in CVS, Walgreens, Publix, GNC, Food Lion. I mean, stores I never heard of, but we were in stores all over the country. And the problem is that that distributor, they had an overnight success with the product, but they weren't good managers. This is where it would have been better if Neil was the manager of that distribution company. They were badly managed. As money came in, the officers and directors bought new houses and new cars, but they didn't do the advertising they're supposed to. They didn't do what they were supposed to support the product. And next thing you know, they were in litigation with CVS and Walgreens, and our product got destroyed in the process. And it wasn't the fault of the product. It was the fault of the distribution company. And so at that time, we kind of pulled back, and we had Niloxin, which was a stronger version of Cobroxin. We focused on the physicians market. And to this day, we still sell Niloxin in about 200 small chain pharmacies and doctors' offices. That became the kind of product that we were selling there, and we were focused on other things. In 2014, we got approached by New Vitality, which was a infomercial company. And their biggest products were ageless male, super beta prostate, ruby reds. They loved the concept of Niloxin, and they wanted us to make a pet product, which we eventually called Pet Pain Away. And we filmed commercials. We spent a year with New Vitality building the marketing plan. And then New Vitality got 2 huge lawsuits that kind of backed up the company. And instead of declaring bankruptcy, they just canceled all their contracts, including us. So we lost a whole year with New Vitality. But then I was approached by another person to actually do network marketing. And they launched the company as myniloxin.com and then changed it to Lumaxa, Lumaxa. And that's the first time we actually sold this cobra venom pain reliever through network marketing. And it was great. People got great relief from it. But again, it was badly managed. The company was poorly managed. And they were one of those companies, I say, we're chasing rabbits. And Chip, you've heard me talk about that before. They get bored too easily. So they want another product. It's like what the people did at Wayora. We're selling tons of the zeolite, and they decided, well, Mona V is making money with juice. We need a juice. These guys are making money with glutathione. We need glutathione. These people are making money with personal care. We need personal care. They kept chasing after the next thing instead of focusing on the great stuff they had. And so that's what happened with Lumaxa. Suddenly they launched a whole personal care line. They launched weight loss products that didn't work. They launched an energy gum that tasted terrible. And so it was just too much. And they confused the distributors, and the thing kind of fell apart. It was really mismanagement. But in my head, a product for pain and inflammation didn't fit in network marketing. It really didn't fit in network marketing. It wasn't something that everyone's going to think they need, even though, as far as I'm concerned, it's a medicine chest product. Everybody should have this product on them at all times. And when you look at the U.S. population, about 1/3 of the U.S. population at any time is in pain. And certainly we all have inflammation. And remember, inflammation isn't just about pain and overexertion. Inflammation causes heart disease. Inflammation causes inflammatory bowel syndrome. So inflammation causes a lot of other things. And if you're taking things that are anti-inflammatory, it makes you healthier. It makes you healthier. It makes your heart healthier, your cardiovascular system healthier, it makes your digestive tract healthier. So it's not just about pain and inflammation, it's about being healthier, with an all-natural product like this. But I really didn't think this was a product for network marketing. When Neil and I started talking, and I and Doug started talking about launching Avini Health, the first couple of months, if people remember, we did it as an affiliateship program while Neil was trying to build out the MLM. And he said, okay, for the affiliate program, we only have a couple of products. So why don't you sell your cobra venom too? Make another add-on product if people wanted it. So it was only supposed to be for the affiliateship. It was not going to be part of the network marketing company. And along came Darren, who tried it and had an amazing result. And next thing you know, Darren's telling other people, and people listen to him. What's that commercial? He told two friends, and they told two friends, and so on and so on and so on. And next thing you know, everybody wanted to try the product, and I wasn't sure we can make the money work because of the expense of what it is. But Neil and I sat down and crunched numbers, and we made it work, and we launched the strongest version I've made of the product for Avini, and it's great. It came out fabulous, and we're getting great stories on a daily basis. And you guys are completely proving me wrong, because in my head, this was not a network marketing product. And now it's one of our key products. I think Neil can tell you, as a group, I think it's the #2 selling product as a group after the Cell Defender. But that's the whole story. And of course, I'm thrilled because it's one of those products that really helps people. Especially if you see someone that's been in pain for years and you get them out of pain, there's nothing like that. They're just they can't believe how different their life is.
We're pressing the timeline, but I got to ask a couple of quick details about that. When you were looking for FDA approval, you could have gone to the Cobras, or you could have gone and made that peptide some other way. What the heck is a peptide? Why did you choose to get it from the Cobras? Kind of interested about that.
All right, so that work goes long. So yeah, this is a very complicated story. So when I was in college, I actually worked with cone snail venom and Gila monster venom. Gila monster venom eventually became the diabetic drug Byetta. It was originally from Gila monster venom, because they found out that when a Gila monster bites you and you pass out, the reason you pass out is from severe hypoglycemia, because the venom in the Gila monster eats up your blood sugar. And so some researchers said, wow, that could be good for diabetics. And they found this one chemical in the Gila monster venom called xanthide, or Xendin-4, and they turned it into a drug for diabetes. And I did some of the modeling for that when I was in college. So I already had some experience with proteins from venomous animals. Then we started working with cone snails, and one of the cone snails had conotoxin EI, which is a potent alpha conotoxin that binds the acetylcholine receptor, much like cobra venom. And I worked on that for years, and we published a few papers. But I've told the story before. It's hard to milk a snail. It's really, really hard to milk a snail. And you get very little venom when you do it. And when I looked at alpha conotoxin and I compared to alpha cobratoxin, they had very similar benefits, but cobras are easy to milk and you get a lot of venom from it. So I started looking at cobras instead, and I fell in with a company that was already doing decades of research on it. And I found the research they had went back to the 1890s. And so what I did is, over the years, I bought all the research. I gave people cash and stock, and I purchased every bit of research that's ever been done on the use of cobra venom for the treatment of disease and pain since the 1890s. And so we have it. We have thousands of patient records, we have footage, we have film, we have video, we have all that stuff. So we learned pretty much everything there was to know about what you could do with the peptides. And just you asked what a peptide was. A peptide is a small protein. So proteins are made from chains of amino acids linked together. And as they have a primary structure, which is simply the chain of amino acids, and then they have a secondary structure, which is how they fold, and then a tertiary structure, which is how they fold together with especially other peptides. And so, so the three-dimensional structure of the protein or the peptide is what gives it its properties, what it looks like in 3 dimensions and what it attaches to. Peptides are really just small proteins. So you have monopeptides, dipeptides, tripeptides, or just 1 or 2 or 3 amino acids. And then you have a peptide, which is, some people argue about how many, but it's usually about 8 up to 80 amino acids. Once you get over 80, it's not a peptide anymore, it's a protein. So these are peptides, they're about 71 amino acids long.
All right, so goal for the call was for you guys to know Rik a bit more intimately, to know who you're working with and what makes him tick, where he comes from, how he thinks, what gets his attention, what's something special, maybe a little something about each of the products. And I hope that we made some progress down that road today. It's time for me to turn it back over to Robin, because we have used our time. Rik, a great joy for me. I hope it was a great joy for the others to listen as well. That was our intent today.
I will just point one thing out before Robin jumps back on is I saw an Inner Circle probably about a month ago. Someone got a package that looked like the Postal Service drop kicked it. And I was really upset about it. Obviously, it wasn't us, but the thrilling part to me was that all the products survived, but the pen, the Avini pen, was bent in half. And I think I saw that person on the call. And I just want you to know how good customer service is here and how good Joe Lucas and Brent Bonner are. When they saw her order came in, they put 3 pens in her order to replace the pen that got destroyed. So I hope she got it and I hope she appreciated it.
Back to you, Robin.
Oh, wow. That was incredible. Thank you guys for this call. Howard, let's go ahead and stop the recording if we can and get this call out. Oh, thank you, Rick. That was special. Thank you, Chip, so much.
Hey,
Yes, Neil, go ahead.
did he